is the current executive director of the Labor and Employment Relations Association, an organization that I and Nancy DiTomaso first encountered when we were students at the University of Wisconsin in the Social Science Building, when since 1947, when it was founded and was called the Industrial Relations Research Association, LERA had its offices in the building where we took most of our classes and lived most of our lives for a better part of a decade, I think. So we have a long-standing familiarity with that organization. In the 1990s, IRA moved to the University of Illinois, where it has found a home for the last 15 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And just this past year, after 14 years of Paula Wells being the executive director, she retired. And Eric, after a national search, was recruited and hired. And I have to say, as someone who's been on the executive board of LERA for 7 years, I've seen a real positive impact. He comes with a long background in running nonprofit associations, professional associations, and brought some very innovative practices and improvements to how we do things. And it's not easy to get a bunch of academics to be complimentary about anything except their own work. And so we had our first annual conference under his leadership in June of 2013 in St. Louis, Missouri. And one of the marks of his success and early impact on LERA was that we had a 50% increase in attendance at that annual meeting from the previous meeting. And so it was something, everybody thought that was really good. And we also made a lot, we made money instead of losing money.
And we made money.
Really liked it as well. It turns out surplus is better than deficit.
Who knew?
Well, we'll let Congress on that one. I asked Eric if he would come join us and talk about many of the resources and services and structure of our parent national association. And I have for 7 years, I've been chair of the National Chapter Advisory Committee for LERA, and that means I have about 40 chapters, state and local chapters, that report to me, and I and the council or the committee deal with them and provide as many resources and counsel as we need. Well, I'm going on about that, he informed me when we were on the phone and in some emails that he was more than happy to share with you his insights and understanding about, and you had, I think, just about enough time to still be positive and not be cynical about LERA.
We're still in the honeymoon stage, so it works out okay.
Good period, yes. And so here's our Duchinsky.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Bill, thank you very much for inviting me to at least be on the program. I understand that there's all sorts of things going on, but the TERA conference was the first opportunity for me to sit down and watch a conference. I was hoping to meet folks and learn more about LERA while I was at the one in St. Louis. Things just got a little busy and out of hand, so I was going to drive down and just sit and listen and meet people, and then I found out I had to work. So that's fine, because it gives me an opportunity. I started in at LERA on November 15th was my start day. which my eldest daughter got married like a week or so after that, and then I came home that weekend and broke 3 ribs and concussioned, and so it was, I'm hoping that it's all uphill from here or downhill from here. No, that's not going to work either. You know what I mean, that it's all going to be good. And part of this year is getting not only to learn about the organization, but also about the people in the audiences and basically what are the problems y'all face and how can LERA help. And so anyway, it is a bit of an introduction to LERA, and I get to showcase the stuff that I think I learned over the last almost year. And also EPRN, the Employment Policy Research Network. So we'll start off with good afternoon. We're still in the afternoon. Now, this one, I said keep your phones handy. Usually as soon as you start a presentation, everybody says turn them off. And I don't know technologically if this will work, but we have a couple of cool things that you can have live feeds, so you can update. But we might have to go back to show of hands. The speed with the internet was not particularly great. I personally get to take advantage of the government shutdown because I'm standing here instead of sitting out there if it wasn't for the government shutdown. So this is an opportunity. And of course, I do realize I kind of stand between you and great intellectual discussions that I'm sure happen afterwards, probably with some drinks of choice. The goals that I wanted to have in this presentation, and we may end up being more of a discussion, at least I hope so, is to learn about you and your challenges. Talk about how LERA might be able to help with those challenges. And certainly what I learned about LERA and some of the current things that we have going on. During the interview process, and frankly, I moved to Champaign probably about 15 years ago and had known Paula when she took this job when it moved down from Wisconsin. And it was, so we have kind of gone back and forth with each other about LERA, so I was a little bit informed about it, but the thing that interested me the most was that y'all had great content and great networks. I mean, and that's usually for a nonprofit. That's one of the hardest things to pull together. Now, the challenges with technology and sending is the sending the information back out and sharing and those sorts of things. Paula did a fabulous job. Just to share one small story is that from Wisconsin, it came in a couple of carloads or a U-Haul, but membership was still being done on cards, 3x5 cards, and this is in the 90s, so I mean the internet was kind of going by then, so it was still a bit of a good thing that I threw them out, even keeping the cards, because there's you know, data and trying to, but there's handwritten notes, he paid, Bill paid, on and off, you know, during that time period. So Paula brought the organization from a structural standpoint on forward. Again, the content and the relationships and the annual meeting and the sharings like this have been going on. Now, trying to bring more people into this great network and share the information is where I sort of take the baton from where Paula got it. And so there's going to be a lot more dialogue with talking longer than my thing went to sleep. Well, now I will have to do it the old-fashioned way. Golly. Pretty soon you're just going to see my tap dance. Oh, there we go. I put this information up early on instead of as the last slide because I really would like you to take advantage of my contact information. Because it's Emily and my responsibility to be able to help whatever way we can. And I'm fairly open-minded when it says in terms of trying to pull technology together or this person needs to know something else. We kind of are the nexus is where all of these things go in between. So please feel free to give us a call or email me with any questions that you might have. And we've even had things, I've had somebody, we're on the first floor of the LERA school, and we're in the hallway, and so I got students going by all the time. But one of the union staff people from the grounds group came in, and LERA is on my door and everything. And he came in with a question about how he could roll over his pension from being a steel worker to the Illinois pension system. And of course I had to ask him if he really wanted to do that, because I'm not sure the Illinois pension system will be around for a whole lot longer. But it was one of those things that I thought, okay, I haven't been there that long. I knew a few people. I sent an email out to a couple of consultants, and they came back with some answers, and we just sent them, I emailed them back the information. So, Lord knows, I do not know anything along those lines, but I'm a firm believer of knowing the right people to answer those questions. So, all right, now this is the technology that I was hoping would work better. So the question here, and the technology essentially was, and I have done presentations that this worked okay. If you're in academia, it's called polleverywhere.com. It's a great thing because the students can essentially text answers, and it instantly goes to your screen. So you can run tests, or you can do Dancing with the Stars, whatever it is. You can take the votes in and pull up information. But the question I'm asking, and so we'll rely on the raise of hands, is what is your area? I just want to get an idea of the audience here. So I broke it down, the question down to the traditional areas. How many of you would say you represent labor? All right. And management? Okay. Government? Oh, well, they're not here. Neutrals. So arbitrators, mediators, I guess. Academia, okay. That's interesting. And other, did I miss anything, anybody with an other? All right. Because my background is my undergraduate's in marketing, my graduate degree is in education, adult education. So I came up in sales and marketing, so data is like my, I love that stuff. And it looks like somebody, voted. Anyway, the next question is that I have for you is just trying to understand membership. So how many of you are members of LERA? Okay, got a handful, almost. Tara, and then there's some of you that both, if I see that. How about neither? Okay. Now, it's important, at least from my perspective, because the way that information technology has evolved to this point in time is trying to get information at the right time in the right batches, in the right nuggets, to the right people. And so sometimes it isn't a membership, and though I'd love to have you as a member of whether it's the chapter or national or whatnot, I also want y'all to think of LERA as the gateway, sort of we try to sift through things. It used to be where associations created the information for an industry. Now, with the flood of information on the internet, sometimes nonprofits turn into more of we throw out all the junk so you don't have to. So we're trying to pull out good information and make it, and that's the value we bring to you, so you don't have to sift through all of it. So this is what I learned. This is pretty much text taken straight out of our Constitution. That LERA is, and please, I'm going to just think about this, because I wanted to make sure we're all on the same page, that you had an understanding about what LERA was supposed to do, that we affirm the rights of employees and employers. It's really the whole spectrum of folks. We try to improve instruction, that it assumes no partisan position. And I have to admit that I've been part of or working with a number of associations, professional associations, academic or medical or nursing or whatnot. And they're fairly homogenous as a group. I mean, they all sort of have their own issues as a profession. And this is one of the few that the core constituencies have significantly different opinions on things. And that this is actually the meeting place, and that the organization helps facilitate the discussion. And so I find that very interesting and intriguing. So we also promote the exchange of ideas and encourage research. So LERA is really, as my 2 cents is, that it is this meeting place, that LERA as an organization is a facilitator of discussion, and that we try to pull the best information out. Now, we can't, boy, that does smell good, doesn't it? Is that we can't do that without y'all's help. And so I'm hoping that we start building a better dialogue, whether online or offline or phone or wherever at a meeting, that we can open up those discussions. So the diverse audience, certainly human resource management. Now I must say that from the executive board, we'd certainly like to have more management people. I mean, as a percentage, we probably as a whole have about 40% academic, and then most of the rest of the percentages are down in the 10, 12%, and management's probably 5 or 7. And just to try to, if we're here to facilitate discussions, I want to make sure everybody is in the room when we're having those discussions. So the board has asked Emily and myself to try and do some outreach, and so we are trying to look at providing information and structuring it so it might interest management folks. The nice thing is the way our board's set up, we actually have 3 chairs for each of the major groups, and so the board is very balanced when it comes to the voices. Lawyers, policymakers, basically people with fundamentally different points of view. So here we go. Questions or comments at this point in time? I'm going to take a little, because unless y'all have had caffeine, this might be, going through the steps here might be a little exciting, or not. Question? I can. Thank you very much. The question was the status of a certification. It is in the study stage, honestly, at this point in time. I do understand that it has been maybe in that stage for a little while. I have been with an organization that had absolutely phenomenal certification. So I was hoping to move that peanut along a little bit faster than what it is. The truth of the matter is the federal government stepped in and said we were going to spend a whole lot of money on being able to do a job task analysis, which is the #1 hardest and first thing and most expensive thing to do, and they were going to do it free. Unfortunately, it's going to take year or so for it to get done. But on the plus side, and this is out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, one of those offshoots under occupational health, and they put a book together on job descriptions and all sorts of things. And they actually turned to LERA and said, look, we're looking for some reviewers. We're wanting to put an official job description together on what this mythical job is for labor relations tech specialists, something along those. They don't even know, I'm not sure what they want to call it. And so we were able to pull again the experts in the content that we had, and they took it, and they're going to do some very in-depth interviews. And the end piece, the job task analysis, is to create a job description that is common across as many places as possible out in the real world, so we can start building test questions, and that's sort of steps A, B, and C for that. So probably to answer your question in timetable, until that thing is finished in a year, year and a half, it won't move beyond that job task analysis. What is y'all's feeling towards a certification? Since you're all here, do you think it's needed? I mean, Bill, do you?
Not everybody may understand.
Okay, please.
But if you're familiar with SHRM and other organizations, that for people working in a professional area, it's in a sense like getting CLE credits or CME credits, and the professional association doesn't do the teaching itself,
right.
but rather it licenses to academics and other groups and organizations that have curricula to be able to offer it for a fee often, and then people can get through a defined process of accumulating certification credits to get recognized as having expertise, and then the association provides testing, which may come in various forms, to confirm after people have taken this that they have the expertise and the knowledge and the skills that would then provide this as a credential that people might use in their careers. And those certification areas are part of what's being decided on.
Right. And I'll try to keep my wonkiness down to a minimum, is that this hair was split for me, and it's really important on the credentialing environment, is there's a difference between a certification and a certificate, in that a certificate comes at the end of instructions. A certification tests a body of knowledge that's accepted out in the workforce. And so the importance of this job task analysis is because at the end of the day, if you pass a certification, you will be able to go anywhere in the United States and say, I have this certification, and it will be a good indicator that you know or have an experience with a body of knowledge. The significance is that you can get a certificate just coming right out of school. A certification most of the time requires at least a year, if anywhere from a year to 5 years of work experience. And so it basically says that there is a group of people that meet a minimum requirement across the entire country. And LERA would like to have this certification possibility, mostly so as I'm starting to learn to understand, it's either parts of people's jobs or some people's full job or whatever the case is, that if this credential would definitely help saying, look, I know how to do this area of expertise.
One more thing.
Please.
Part of the background to this is that SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers, offers and has very well established long-term certification process in a number of fields. And LERA And we all might know, we can go over that territory another time, why that would be. But they also report, and in our communications, that they see a strong need in the American economy and American labor unions and management practices for having this. There's demand for it, there's need for it, it would be a valuable resource. And so they've been very much encouraging LERA as really being the only professional association in the United States that is appropriately situated to establish, and that, as you pointed out, already has the in-depth network among academics and managers and labor union officials and other organizational environments to, and have the, in a sense, the legitimacy of its credentialing by its name.
And that's really an important thing. As an organization, professional organization, our image for quality and academia, standards and all of these, this is our brand and our identity. We really can't sway too far off that or take sides, as I mentioned earlier. You had a question?
Well, I think Bill made an excellent point because SHRM and World at Work, which both great organizations, they're more geared towards HR, not really in a...
Right.
I mean, obviously, you can use World at Work compensation in the labor setting.
Yep.
You can use some of what SHRM teaches you in the labor setting.
Right.
But LERA is kind of geared towards the labor management arena. And without LERA offering like a continuing education certification or however they structure that, I don't think there's really another organization that nobody else that will do that.
No, it's so. Thank you very much for that. It's something. Interestingly enough, at least for me, is I have a phone call with the SHRM director next week.
And then the final thing I would say is that in terms of the delivery of this, as chair of the National Chapter Advisory Committee, I see this as a very important going forward opportunity for the state and local, usually urban chapters around the country to become conduits of this, providers of this kind of training. And so we often have very experienced members who also may be already doing some of this, but would be providing this kind of educational resource in the environment of LERA certification. And so for the chapters, it becomes another reason for people to join and be active members, and for the chapters.
Truthfully, I was a membership director for the International Society of Arboriculture. Tree care in urban environments. And, but we had 21,000 members all across the world, but they started their certification in 1998, 99. Little tiny organization for 70 plus years. And so they had about 3,500 members. And then between 2000 and whatever, 2010, 11, they grew to 21,000, and the certification had 22,000 people in their certification program. So it almost blew the organization apart. So there were lessons learned that I was able to cheat on and hopefully bring to this organization. It does help with eventually with money, but the big thing is getting it right and getting it right the first time. And so that's why I don't mind taking a little bit extra time, which probably means that I took too long for your question, but I hope that answers your question.
Actually, it was my grandchild in Duchinsky, back several years ago.
Okay.
My mother didn't want to see the
Okay, I will have to remember that. I will keep you informed.
Yeah, we want to honor Kim with this. This was, Kim brought this idea to LERA several years ago, and Joel Cutter-Gershenfeld, when he was president, honored her at a LERA meeting.
Excellent.
For having been
Excellent.
the mother of
Yeah. Well, the whole group, Paula and Emily and Joel, they met with myself and another consultant friend of mine who was in charge of the other certification. We met, I don't know, a year and a half or so ago about these things. So anyway, That is on the long-term horizon. What can LERA do for you today? How many, let's say, within the last month have gone to the LERA website? Show of hands. Okay. Did you find what you wanted? Okay. Well, we have a couple of parts to it. Most of it is for open to non-members. We have news, we have resources. We still have somebody that I rely on to be able to pull news together. Yes?
I was just going to correct about what you were to do. I think there's an opportunity, I know we'll talk about it in LERA and earlier, but try to really reach out to young professionals and students that I think we could do a better job at.
Right.
And so if there's a mechanism or a way,
Well,
if there's a mechanism or a way that we can reach out better, maybe for
yeah.
student chapters, I'm actually a SHRM advisor as well. I see great value in LERA, and so I'm a member of both, and I make sure I explain to my students the distinction and why both are important memberships. And so I just feel like LERA could do, we could, and LERA could do a better job at reaching out to students and having a more formal entity or formal mechanism to involve students. You know, because you look around and there's not a lot of students that are part of our organization, but we don't really have a mechanism for that.
I appreciate that. And the thing, since we're totally off my discussion, my PowerPoint, which is fine, I can roll with it. I do want to give you a small nugget of what's going, because you're essentially my live focus group, whether you liked it or not. You know, I got you way out here, and so now we'll talk about who done it. No, the important thing, because it starts to turn into a circular argument in the sense that you try and recruit people and say they should join, but we may not have what they can tangibly use, and so it's a bad experience, and then it's a fits and start. The thing that I've learned with that is just to jump in and try to do something. In some ways, because of marketing background, the thing that I want to be able to pull together is give those 3 and 5 bullet points on why people should be members. Because nonprofits have gone through an absolute evolution, not only from technology standpoint, but in the last 20 years. From, hey, I'm going to get my engineering degree, I have to belong to the Society of Engineers, and I'm going to be that forever, to, okay, I might get my engineering degree, but then I might start my own company, and then I might go over here, and then I might go to Europe for a year, and then I might think about getting joining an association, and it's kind of a tough, I don't know an association that handles things well from that getting a student member through those first professional years. Most of them have that block in between. But associations have to now juggle a number of things because information is through the internet so much and people are so well connected. That's almost what a nonprofit was, is a way to network. Now network happens all the time, and so we're bringing a different value to it. And so sometimes it's a little what's in it for me. So my goal is, with all that said, 3 or 5 bullet points on saying, hey, you got a great magazine, which we'll talk a little bit. We got a great website where you got news that comes in. Hopefully for the students, in a short period of time, we will have all of the proceedings from the last 65 years on a website, searchable, so they can actually do the research that they need to do between all the stuff that LERA's been able to do. So that I'm kind of working on, but this is also one organization that could benefit from a little bit more recruitment tools and having the members go out and recruit the next batch of members. But you're only going to do that if you think it's valuable. And so we get into that circular argument again. So the LERA website, it's got a great personality. It's got a ton of information. It may not be the prettiest one at the dance, but it does have a lot of great stuff. And we try to keep it as current as possible. And I hope that concentrating on content and utility, we can spend some time making it look prettier, but I'd rather find things than look at pretty pictures. I mean, I might get a couple of oohs and ahs after the first time around, but after that, it better answer some questions. So feedback on this, please let me know. I mean, we have a couple of strong folks that put information together. If it doesn't work, or if it seemed wonky or quirky that, hey, I couldn't naturally find what I was looking for, send me an email. Okay, now this was the thing I'd like to say I'm most proud of in the last 6 months, in that the website was structured to make it very easy to use and sort of surf around, but it was really hard to show that you had a members-only section. So you're paying something and you have some exclusive content. Well, we're trying to balance that a little bit. So we did at least pull together a more constructive members-only resource. So if you go on there now and you go under member-only research, it's under one of the drop boxes. It starts to give us an opportunity to showcase some cool things, and this is where I get to show off a little bit. But you already know about since y'all do your videotaping, which, as an aside, the challenge with working with Bill, every time I think I do something, hey, look at this, Bill, this is really cool, tell your chapters about it. Oh yeah, we did that back when we were doing coal and bag of shovels. We used to give the shovels away. So this is always a bit of a challenge, but we have videotape, thank you, Bill, now you got me saying, that we had our president, David Lewin, do a great presentation at the conference. Now, I loved having 300 people at the conference, but I also know there's 1,000 members that we have in LERA. So at least, like 700-800 people that weren't there. And that still is a significant amount of folks that aren't LERA members that might find this stuff interesting. So that's where we try to bring at least a handful of things out. And Representative Gephardt, great keynote speaker. And so this was a great opportunity to pull his presentation and put it out in the members only section. And so go on there, the LERA members, those of you who are not LERA members, please join and then go and see the videos. And then one of the other things that we just added here over the summertime was the Comparative Labor Law and Policy Journal. This is access to a separate journal, a full subscription that you would have to pay for it separately, but it is one of those areas that we've identified, law. Everybody wants to stay out of court. It's fancy that. And so we're trying to bring more information, especially on the currency aspects. So this was one area that we were able to work with that publisher and work with that editor, and so we have that subscription. Again, all part of the LERA membership. And we have some other things there too, the perspectives on work and resources. And this is also one area where we link to New York Times articles, to Wall Street Journal, to NPR, to a number of different stories that we get through our Twitter searches. And I'll talk to you a bit about how we monitor the blogosphere for good content. And for members, this is where everything's going to come out on this one page. Now, we do have an e-newsletter that goes out probably at least twice a year. And this is just good stories about what other members are doing, some reviews. Here's an interesting story about, in preparation to the St. Louis meeting, articles from the president. So again, just trying to keep the communication tools going. the trouble with technology, and I was in publishing for a long time, in academic publishing, and at the time, and even in the early 90s, oh, you know, by Y2K, we won't have paper. You know, we won't use any of that. It's like, oh, okay. But what we found is it's an and. There are people who love paper and will never switch. There are people that love both. There are people that love electronics. So as associations, educators, we have to be good at everything. And so we still print things. Well, the magazine and the research volume will come out in print, but we also are going to be doing electronics, so it's searchable. Content like the e-newsletter, and here's an e-bulletin that we try to get out every month just for member news. Here's, you know, early deadlines, or for example, we have a call for papers for the Portland conference, Portland, Oregon conference. So if you have presentations, that's sort of news would go out this way. So we try to do it in many different ways as possible. Now the surprise for me was this publication right here, Perspectives on Work. Anybody have heard of this? Making sure that the LERA members raise their hand. This is a great publication, and it was one of my biggest surprises, because when one of the first things I sent a survey out to the members. I said, okay, what do you read this? You know, quarter of it, half of it, 3/4 of it, none at all, scan the table of contents. Well, this was one publication across the board. It is the most member-read piece out of a number of associations. I have, there were, and a legitimate response, 75% or more of it, at least half of the members read 75% or more. Now this is, so that floored me. So we really, this new issue that's coming out, this is the cover of the issue that's going to be printed. The theme of it is labor and management and the Affordable Care Act. Now granted, that thing is on a daily collision course to change here and there, but it was important to have articles, and as the title says, we, as an editorial group, tried to pull as many different well-informed perspectives as we can. There's an article in there of how to computerize a hospital and the exercise that it went through and the impact on staff. I mean, so the beauty of this is that it takes one topic and takes it from at least 5 or 6 different perspectives and writes in-depth articles on it. Bill.
Just for everybody who's here, there are a number of examples of perspectives on work that are on the credenza in the registration area. And so you can pick one up and look through it and get an idea. And I think one reason that people like it is that, as you note, there are many points of view on a single topic, but they're all pretty short too.
Yeah.
They're maybe 1,000 words. You know, and it's something you can read each article in just a few minutes. And then, you know, and so people have really concentrated their thoughts. You're not getting into a long, dry academic article, but you can read through a series of these, you know, and really feel that you have gained a comprehensive understanding of what the different perspectives on this issue might be. And if you want to look further, you can.
And that's the nice thing. I went through the editorial process and just about the Affordable Care Act, which, you know, I thought I knew. I'd like to think reasonably well read, but this really did bring those different ideas and perspectives together. And what we try to do is then, obviously, with a print publication that comes out once a year, we're not going to be able to, you know, have the most up-to-date information or stuff that happens after it. But this is how we use the website to integrate with the print material and that members-only section that says, okay, here is the government shutdown. Now the Affordable Care Act has changed. because of the investigation. So here are some extra articles on how to do this. So this is only one piece to a number of different things that we try to have an ongoing discussion of a particular topic throughout the entire year. So I really am happy with this particular edition. But of course, I'm happy with it. I don't pay everybody's membership. Y'all have to tell me if it's any good. So hopefully you can get a hold of a member's copy and we'll see how we like it. Now this is the research volume. This is something that as the Perspectives on Work is non-academic, this is certainly the academic cornerstone of LERA as a professional organization. And it's an important piece. So this is our current one, Collective Bargaining Under Duress, and so there's a number of great articles, very research, accessible, but if you really wanted to understand what is being looked at that may take a few years to get into practice, or the lessons learned turn into practice, this is where you would be able to go to. Now, one of the major things that I'm trying to get the website to is to take some of these and all of our proceedings and turn them into a research library that you can do live searches on. So hopefully make the information more user-friendly. Well, I don't even remember that question, so we'll just go on. This is an interesting piece, the EPRN. It's employmentpolicy.com, and I promise not to do that again. Employmentpolicy.com, should be .org. .org. The reason why this was interesting to me was it was put together by a grant a couple of 3 years ago, has started the process, and what it ended up turning into is its own entity. The membership committee is working, now this is completely open source, anybody can get access to this, and a number of the people that are part of this network are actually general public. This is a website that was designed to bring the best and the brightest discussers about policy into one spot. And so now we have 150 researchers from 50 universities. We have policymakers, general. It's an underutilized resource. And we're trying to figure out how to, again, great content, how do we turn that page a little bit and get it a little bit more interactive? Because we have some great folks that write some really outstanding articles. I mean, it has, well, what, 12, 15 different subject areas. So if you wanted the smartest people, you know, to have a comment or have a discussion on any of these topics, whether you're researching or what, you know, putting together a corporate policy or a local, state, or federal government policy, this would be like the barrel. All the fish are in there. So help me figure out how to utilize that, of these best thinkers.
I really encourage everybody to go to employmentpolicy.org.
Mm-hmm.
And look, if you cue into any of these topic areas, you get access to blogs,
Mm-hmm.
to current research,
Mm-hmm.
for preliminary reports from contemporary research,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all translated into an environment that's really accessible, because the researchers who have signed on to they want people to know about not just policymakers,
Mm-hmm.
but the general public, in unions and management and the rest of the society, to know what the latest research is. And so here you have one portal
Mm-hmm.
where if you're working in any of these areas of the world of work, you can just click on one of these hyperlinks and have access to 5, 10, 15 of the best academic researchers on the planet. It's not just people in the U.S. It's people from all over the
One of the interesting things I've found, not only from the content, but the researchers, just go on the researchers group. That 150, they have little bios, and you could truly find the best minds out there in some of these discussions. And just, okay, I want this, I'll send an email to that person directly if I don't want to go through EPRN. But so it's a nice resource. We've sort of come up with this virtual think tank of folks just to, in some ways, to answer that question of wanting to have one of those bullet points, a way to easily describe what can be a fairly complex, enriched environment. So, not to forget the old technology of listservs. One of the first things that came out in the internet after Al Gore invented it was listservs. This was one of those things that it's just groups of folks that come together, they post something, it automatically gets pushed out. We do have this, and again, sometimes we have some diehard folks in these areas, but it's news. This is the name of the listserv for the news and events. So you'll even have, I saw a program go out, announcement for a conference in Australia. So if you wanted to have a little vacation slash, something to tell your dean that you're going down there for education, that was something you could learn about through one of those listservs. Or you can post a question and say, look, I'm having this trouble. And you will get some very well-educated folks that are working on these things. So we have one on collective bargaining, healthcare industry. We have the wonderful LERA chapter one, where all of the chapters are able to communicate and share information and learn from Bill and all of his good work that he's doing here. And then, of course, we have EPRN as a discussion area. But so you see, it's come into LERA. And there's all these little interconnected communities. And things are going along great. And I think one of the things that the board would like me to, with all of your help, is how do we get more people into the party? Because there's a lot of great things going on. There's all of the things, all of the chapters that Bill is responsible for. By the way, that's a lot. I had 39 organizations in the one I discussed. Half of them were outside of the U.S. So in terms of having U.S. communities that are just getting together talking about things, this is great. I plan to steal a ton of ideas from this community and try to nationalize them. So for example, the St. Louis chapter, the Gateway chapter, not only great hosts, but learned a lot about local programming on how they bring in a ton of practitioners that we at National are struggling to figure out how to do that. So in many ways, the audience that you have right here, I don't necessarily have at a national, and I wish I did, because your perspectives on the day-to-day operational things would be enriching to the rest of the LERA membership. Did y'all know we had interest sections? Other than you can't answer anymore. These are groups of volunteers that got together on their own, and again, it's sort of like all these other online groups. If you really wanted to know the best at any of these topics, they're already getting together on a volunteer basis, and they're sharing stuff, and they're putting presentations together. Strongly encourage this network of folks. And all of this is available through our website, or give us a call, or here's industry councils that's specific for a particular industry. Again, the intriguing thing for me coming into labor and employment relations is not only do you have this job description sort of relationship between unions and management and these and all of these sort of broad things, But then you have this, well, things in aerospace manufacturing might be different than it is in automobile versus some of the other things. So it's sort of split in a number of different ways. And if that weren't enough, there's more. We have a significant amount of recognition for students. I was very pleased. We had 40 papers, posters at the St. Louis conference. And so having all those students come in and they were very energetic, and not only had that, but really some high-level folks that are already out there in the field were very interested in the work that was being done. And so we are trying to figure out ways to engage the student population and connect them with mentors. As staff, how many really do, and this was one piece I wanted to get to for sure, and then we can blow through some of these other things, but social media is a bit of the elephant in the room nowadays for the nonprofits. I have a very easy way to pick up a bunch of stuff, because you could just spend too much time in all of this stuff and just waste a ton of time. But I don't want to do that if nobody really uses a ton of things. But LinkedIn, anybody go to those communities? Let's see, or raise a hands from people that actually are fairly good with LinkedIn. What's the other one? LinkedIn and Twitter. Any people, a ton of tweeters? Professional tweeters, or I mean about your profession, as opposed to, hey, I'm having chicken, I'm doing this right now, and sending that out. Well, that's interesting. Thank you for your responses. Social media, particularly in labor organizing, some of the things that went on with the food service workers were very strongly driven through social media. There's a few articles that we came across that we tried to push back out. The AFL-CIO and their conference had some discussions, as I understand it, about it, because it really is a way of communicating between each other to pull together in more effective actions, whatever they are. So we're trying to not get crazy about it, but it is something that we are trying to keep an eye out. So if you want to dip your toe into it, just either give me a call. Maybe there's just a couple of things that you might want to just take a look at, and you don't have to read everything. Just there's a way to filter some of these things out. And that's basically some of our breakdown. Oh, by the way, we try to be active with LERA. I was a little slow in this area, where we're sending stuff back out and making comments on other ones, just to make sure LERA name gets pushed out through these media. That's kind of what my responsibility is find some good pieces of information and then push it back out and start dialogue. I did much better this part of the month. And Twitter, LinkedIn, our Facebook, I'm really surprised we get that much action on it, but there you go. And thank you. Who has the first question? Not you.
Go back to the intersections and the councils.
You bet.
Yeah, there. I really urge you to go to the LERA website, leraweb.org, and to look at these intersections. And it's kind of old school. We all know that there are globally these informal social networks of people who work in an area. And it cuts across all the constituencies that make up what we do. Management, labor, government officials, academics, neutrals, attorneys, all of these people who are all parts of LERA. And then from all of those areas the constituencies I just described, you'll get people who are involved in managers, union officials, neutrals who are involved in academics who are involved in dispute resolution. When you join, and you can join, let's say this becomes a new responsibility you have. And when you join the interest section, let's say on dispute resolution, you suddenly are in potentially easy access to some of the best minds, and I would say to the best minds on the planet who work with this. And if you send, and now you're part of the interest section, you're in the social network. You say, I'm a part of the dispute resolution social network. We have this grievance coming up, right? And this arbitrator is looking at evidence this way. What does this make sense, right? And suddenly you can get sort of backstage. You can get informal, low cost, meaning usually no cost, meaning no cost. Somebody's feedback about this, and they might say, well, you might bring this question forward, or you might ask about this kind of evidence. And that's, you can't put a dollar amount on that, but being part of these interest sections automatically puts you into informal and very easy access with the other people who are, and again I say, the best minds, the best academic researchers, most experienced people in these areas. And what I find from the people who work in the interest sections that is so interesting to me is that when people go to the LERA conference, they then meet up with people, right? And then they go have a beer or a coffee or who knows what, and they chat. And then the next time they have a problem or an issue coming up or a question that concerns them, they contact that person that they've now met, that they've emailed with, and now they met at the conference, and it really facilitates getting information where often and I've had this happen. I was at a conference where a union official spent about 10 minutes talking to a National Academy arbitrator, one of the senior people in the country, about an issue that had come before him, right, in his union. And so I said, well, how did that go? He said, I just paid for my annual membership 50 times over with him. With what he saved me for what I have to do. And I said, so that's a good thing? And he said, well, that's very good. And so I said, well, then I said, well, bring some of your buddies on to join LERA too. And it's that kind of experience that is very common in LERA. It doesn't make big waves.
No, it's
constant pulse.
There are two things with that. It's certainly encouraging people to join, that get involved in the network, but then actualizing what you're doing. And the best associations, and I want LERA to be one of those top drawer associations, is getting those answers. The one I belong to since, mid-'80s, there is an association of association executives. Please, but I continue to be with them because the few times, and this may be once every couple of years, they got the best knowledge center ever. Type in a question, within 24 hours, not only do I have it back, I have, sample copies of the policies, I have people I can talk to, I have, salary ranges, whatever I needed, boom, it just answered. And so that is a fairly high bar that I believe that with LERA's communities that we can start providing that kind of a value, because as I find with labor relations, it's maybe not the full-time job. So if I can cut down your time from this to this in looking and getting up to speed, that might be worth a membership, I hope. So the last question I have for you is something that you may actually need to get back to me. I want to know, how do you stay professionally educated? So do you, for example, I'm assuming you're all here, so regional conferences is one way that you keep professional education. Do you take online classes to be professionally educated? Raise hands at online classes. Journals, print magazines, those sorts of things. Any hand raisers? Okay, now I gotta, so how do you stay connected with what you need for your job?
Sometimes you need to
Okay. How do you, or where do you go to get your information?
The web, a lot of times you can go to .org or,
Uh-huh.
or within the steelwork web itself, safety or FMLA or workers' comp.
Right. Is that, there was a question, somebody came to me earlier. Your unions have national staff that puts stuff together, but do you have state and then local? Do you have to go all the way to national, or?
Well, we have a national safety.
Mm-hmm.
We have some regional, but we
Okay.
also have, but for us, nationally, it's no different than six months. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like calling it. So
Are you able to communicate with them on labor-related, not performing? You said OSHA, so I want to stay away from the actual tasks, but let's say negotiations and those sort of things. Is that some of the stuff that they can help you out with or do help out with? Okay. Anybody else that is, we've got the union folks. Wrap up this table. How do y'all stay informed professionally? So you're the lucky one.
But I keep in touch with my international union because they send
Yeah.
out emails and
Great.
also still have a magazine.
All right.
Very informational.
Great.
I work for a state that,
And they don't give you any information.
nationally available for the most part.
So in terms of they just send.
They don't every
Oh, okay.
we have webinars on a daily basis.
Okay.
You can either attend or not attend. And we generally attend semi in the office, but
Okay.
every webinar provides information to everybody else.
So the tax dollars at work. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you all very much for your attention. I do appreciate this, at least for me, to brag about the organization that employs me, but I'm also proud of it because it's a good organization. It's very well represented. Please touch base with me while I'm here. I'm here actually all the way through Friday. If you have any questions, great ideas. I love great ideas. I'll steal them, give you credit, but I definitely will take them. Thank you.